Hello, we're here with Alyssa Morris. She's a professional oboist, but also a very well-known composer. I'm Sarah Roper, oboist, and I'm also with Xaro Martínez, a bassoonist. Alyssa, we have a couple of questions for you. First of all, we'd like to ask you, since you are a professional oboist and also a composer, we'd like to know how you came to where you are now. If you could tell us a little bit about what you studied and your career path a little bit.
Sure. Well, when I was young, I started with piano. We had an old piano in our front room, and I liked to pick out tunes by ear, and I begged my parents for piano lessons and began my studies on piano up until middle school or junior high, whichever you call it. In our region, it was junior high. And there was the opportunity to take choir, orchestra, or band, and I wanted to do band, and I thought I wanted to do clarinet or flute. And my band director asked if I had thought about the oboe, because he knew I had had a piano background, I wouldn't be needing to learn. Like the oboe has some. We're one of the only ones who does what we do, and so there's not as much of a massive support as if you play the clarinet. There are more people who play clarinet and more who play flute. So I think that there's sort of this idea that, I believe that anybody can play the instrument, but I also think that it's helpful to understand like notation and things like that, going into something where you might have to be a little bit more self-guided in the band room. And so I did not know what an oboe was, though. I had no idea. And so he showed it to me and let me take it home and see what I thought. And I loved it. I thought it was so much fun, but I kind of wonder if it had been anything, I probably would have loved it, because I love the voice of the oboe. I love playing the oboe, and I feel like I found my voice on the oboe. But I love playing anything that I can get my hands on, and even if I don't know how to play it, sometimes my husband's a percussionist, and so we have a lot of percussion items in the house, and sometimes I'll just like to go and play around with a marimba or on the drums, and I think it helps me to put myself in a different position, just to kind of get some other sound world ideas as I'm thinking about composing and and silly instruments too, kazoos, melodicas, who knows? I like everything, and I just like playing music. So but I loved playing the oboe, and I loved playing a band, and I had also loved writing my own music. I found that when I started learning piano, I frequently would want to make up my own things and play my own things and improvise my own things, and so I still made sure, per my parents' request, to practice the thing that my teacher asked me to practice, and that I would save the last like 10 minutes of my practice for improvisation, and I'm glad that they, made sure that I was following through on my commitments to my teacher, because all of the things that I was learning in piano and on oboe, the music that I was learning really served to teach me more about composition, because I was learning from master composers by learning their music. And so it ended up really fueling my fire for wanting to compose, just to not only learn the performing process and learning to perform really wonderful repertoire that inspired me, but also then in turn having the opportunity and freedom to improvise and try to find my own voice as a composer. We had a competition in elementary school, middle school, high school, that was called the Reflections Competition. And it's a nationwide competition, but it starts out in regions. And there was a music section where you could submit a music composition for the competition. And starting fourth grade, I wanted to start submitting things for this competition. And so my very first composition in fourth grade was just this little piano tune, and I I'm grateful for my parents and how supportive they were, because I didn't really know how to notate it. I kind of played it until I figured out this is how it goes, and I was playing it the same each time. But then my parents took me to a simple recording technician and recording studio, and he notated it for me and recorded it. And then eventually I started learning how to use the software notation after I learned how to start writing it. I started handwriting first, and then eventually learned the software notation in high school. Um, but that first reflections competition when I was in fourth grade, I had a reasonable amount of success. I mean, for this little competition, I remember, placing in the region and then it going to state and feeling really excited about it, having done as well as it did for my, for where I was at. And so it made me want to keep on going and try to push myself to, well, maybe instead of a piano solo, I'll try to write a piano duet, and this time I'm going to notate it myself. And then the next year I thought, well, what if I added a flute, and I wrote something for piano and flute, and or maybe voice. And then by the time I was in high school, I wanted to write a band piece. And so that was the first time I wrote something for large ensemble, was in high school. And by then I started taking composition lessons along with oboe lessons, and I was still playing oboe in band and in the community orchestras and taking oboe lessons, but also taking composition lessons and piano lessons, because I loved them all. I didn't want to give any of them up. And so I knew that I wanted to study music in college, and that's what I wanted to do, that I wanted to do something music. At one point I thought maybe I wanted to teach band in high school, or that's actually what my husband does. He teaches band in high school. But I did a job shadow one day. I went and watched what one of the band directors in the area did all day, and I decided I think I would rather teach more one-on-one, and maybe college is what I thought that I wanted to teach. Even though I loved what they did, I thought I had a harder time seeing myself in doing that. There was something else that it didn't quite click like I thought it was going to click. And so although I very much appreciate what our band directors do for us here and what they do for the students, and I'm very supportive of our public school band directors and grateful for them. So I went to college at Brigham Young University for my undergraduate degree, studying with Geraldine Giovanetti, and she was my oboe professor. And I was undecided at first as to whether I would go into oboe performance or composition. I had ultimately decided I wouldn't do piano performance, but that I wanted to keep on playing, accompanying my friends when they played their oboe solos for juries or whatever. I did a lot of that when I was in college. And by the time I was about halfway through my first year, I decided that I wanted to do performance, but that I still wanted to find a way to take composition classes and to continue composing. And so that's what I did. I maybe took a little bit longer in my undergraduate degree so that I could take composition classes along the way, and some traditional composition classes, and maybe some that were also more popular music geared classes like songwriting and popular songwriting, and I loved all of it, and I thought it was so much fun. And so when I neared my the end of my undergraduate degree, I decided it would be fun to maybe write something for myself to play in my senior recital. And so I asked my teacher, Geraldine, what she thought about if I tried to write myself something for my senior recital. And I'm so grateful to her, because she was supportive through the whole thing. And she had never even heard anything that I'd written, but she was like, sure, go ahead. And so I set to writing this piece that I kind of had started thinking up, and I have fond memories of that writing process, because at the same time, my husband and I were newlyweds at that point too. I think by then I was like the beginning of my senior year in college in my undergraduate degree. And he was working with his friend on an arrangement of the Beethoven Pathetique Sonata, the last movement, for two marimbas, while I was working in the same lab on this piece that I was working on for my senior recital. So we would work together in the same lab, and it was just a really fun memories. But so I was working on a piece that eventually would become what it's called Four Personalities. And so this is the piece that I ended up writing for my senior recital. And it's a piece that's based on the Hartman personality test, which was kind of the personality test to take back in the olden days, back in 2006 and 7. Now it seems like there's a Briggs-Meyer test, personality test, and there's a variety of other personality tests. But then a lot of people were taking the Hartman personality test, which defined personalities by color, red and yellow and white and blue, and you weren't necessarily just one color or another, but people might have more of one color and less of another color, or maybe the same amount of two colors, and it just kind of helped you to understand yourself and see yourself a little bit more. And there wasn't the thing that I loved about personality tests, and that I always have loved about personality tests, is that there's really no right or wrong. It's just understanding yourself and others better. And that the differences is what makes it beautiful. That the differences in people and their personalities is one of the things that makes the world so interesting. So I wrote this piece, Four Personalities, and played it for my senior recital, and my teacher Geraldine was so supportive in the whole process. And then after my recital, she said, well, now you've got to figure out what to do with it next. What's next for this piece? And I hadn't thought about that. I just thought, I wrote the piece, I played it at my recital, I did the thing I said I was gonna do. I didn't know what to do next. I hadn't even thought about it. So she suggested that I send it to Trevco Music, to Trevor Kramer, who was then the owner of Trevco Music, and see if he might consider publishing it. And she also suggested that I send it to Dr. Nancy Ambrose King, who then was the IDRS president, because Dr. King was interested in performing new music, and see if she might consider the possibility of looking at the piece and what she thought. And so I was a bit intimidated to do something like this, because I was just I was just graduating with my undergraduate degree. I didn't know what I was doing, and and I still felt pretty young and everything. And so, but I did that. I did what she said, and so I sent it to Trevco, and Trevor Kramer decided he wanted to publish the piece, and I sent it to Dr. King, and Dr. King wanted to perform it. And not only did she want to perform it, she wanted to perform it at the next IDRS conference, which was in 2008, which was at Brigham Young University, which is where I went to my undergraduate. So I feel really grateful to my teacher, Geraldine, and also to Dr. King and to Trevor Kramer for taking a chance on my music, and for giving it some international presence, because I feel like that was the start of receiving some commissions.
I didn't realize that Four Personalities was one of your first main compositions, because it's a fantastic piece. I had no idea that it was one of the first pieces. Wow.
Thank you. Well, I mean, I had written before, but I feel like it was the first piece where I was really starting to find my voice. So I had written, just a variety of different compositions in high school, but I feel like it was the first time I was seriously kind of trying to find my voice, and
I think Geraldine was a fantastic, brilliant advice she gave to you. I mean, that's just excellent. The guidance you had there to push you forward.
So too. I agree. I feel like now as a teacher, I think all the time to the advice that she gave me, as I'm trying to guide my students and help them to find their voice and help them to figure out what next with their different ideas and whatever areas or they're trying to sort of follow and to find their musical voice in, and try to think of what next, what do you do with this amazing thing that you've created, or this, this piece that you have ready for performance that you need to show, or this, um, uh, this paper that you could present at a conference or something. I'm really grateful to her for that, because I think about it all the time, and how I can be that kind of teacher for my students. After my undergraduate, I took about a 5-year break before I went on to my master's degree. That's when my 2 children were born. I have a 16-year-old and a 15-year-old, my son and my daughter, and they both love music too. And my daughter plays oboe also, so that's kind of fun. But I know I tried to talk her. I didn't try to talk her out of it. I just told her, you're going to have to make reeds, and you can play anything that you want. It really could be anything that you want. But she said, I want to play the oboe. So okay. But and she's doing a great job. But anyway, I took a 5-year break then, and in that 5-year break, I think it was a really valuable 5 years, because I needed to learn to become a music entrepreneur. I had developed somewhat of a private studio then, teaching oboe and piano students, and I was doing some gigging, and I started receiving commissions slowly. I received my first few commissions in those couple of years, after some composition commissions, but it all kind of started slow, which was good, because I think that our skill level is like composers, like we get faster. The longer that the longer we do what we're doing, I guess we get faster sometimes. And then, everybody talks about writer's block and how you hit writer's block, but I feel like it's easier to overcome as you get into it further, because you just have more tools to figure out what you might do to overcome that. So it's good that it started out slow, but I feel like I was really grateful for that in between time, those 5 years, not only because I had my young kids at home, and it was great to be with them when they were so little, but that I think it really affirmed what I wanted to do with my degree and what I wanted to do next. But it also helped me to be able to start developing my portfolio, and and making sure that, I was doing the things that I needed to do to prepare for a career in music. So I had my first few commissions then. One was a piece for oboe and percussionists, and one was for flute, oboe, and piano, and then I did a couple of arrangements of things and a couple of other things, and started on an oboe concerto on commission before I started my master's degree at BYU, which was 5 years later. So I started in 2012, and I did my master's degree over about 3 years, because I had young kids. I had a 3 and a 4-year-old when I started, so I took my time. And then after that, and during the master's degree, which was performance, I stretched it out also because I wanted to do the same. I wanted to take as many composition classes as I could. So I was almost double majoring kind of in composition and in performance. And I loved all of the performance classes and all of the composition classes at every institution. And and then after my master's degree, we moved to Cincinnati, and I studied at CCM at the University of Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music, and I with Dr. Mark Ostoich, and who was also a wonderful and supportive teacher, and supportive of my my kind of having my feet in both pools, in performance and composition, and that I wanted to keep doing that I definitely wanted to learn the canon and wanted a job as a professional oboist. That was, what I wanted to do, but I also wanted my research to I wanted my research to encompass the things that I loved about composition as well. So he was also really supportive of that, and so I was there from 2015 to 2017. In fact, my final project at CCM was, and I asked him if this could be my final project. I started writing it about halfway through my second year there, was the collision etudes, which is on the IDRS Gilet Fox competition for this year. So that was my doctoral project. But I'm very grateful for him and his support, and then after that, he was the one who found out about the job in Kansas, where I am now, and said, you should apply for this job. I think that this would be a really good fit for you. And so I was in the mode of applying for any job that was, out and available, but something about it felt right to me too, and to him. And so I feel like it's been such a wonderful place to be. I feel like, in the interview process, the stars kind of aligned, and I just felt like everything went right, and it was a really good feeling, the interview day, the audition, everything, and the whole process. And I love my colleagues here. And so I'm in year 8 now at Kansas State University, and I teach oboe, and I teach music theory and music business and songwriting, depending on the semester. Like, it'll switch between different semesters, so I get to do a little bit of everything that I love. And then and if I wanted to, I could propose other classes that that were in an area like this area that I love, with composition and performance, and where the two meet. But a lot of my research can be performance and composition, and where the two meet, because there's a big component of my position that is research. So this coming semester, I will have a sabbatical where I won't be teaching. Somebody else will be teaching for me, and I will just get to work on my research. And some of that research is totally performance, and some of it is totally composition, and some of it's a little bit of both. And I'm just so glad I'm in a position where they're supportive of me doing both, and because I love it so much, and I feel like I feel inspired to do one when I do the other, and vice versa. So yeah,
Wow.
that
Yeah, that sounds
might have
great.
been a longer answer. Sorry.
No, but it's really interesting to hear the process, the progress, and how the paths that you took. And so where are you actually from? Because you're at Kansas State University, yeah. But
I'm from I was born in Texas, and I was in Texas until I was about 5, and then my family moved to Utah, and they all still live in Utah, and that's where Brigham Young University is, and that's where my first 2 degrees were from, and that's where my husband and his family are from also. And now we're here in Kansas, which is maybe about like a 14-hour drive or so from Utah. So it's far, but it's not crazy far. We get to see them pretty often, and so it works out well. And yeah, everything's far in the Midwest anyway, so just get used to it. So
Thanks, Alyssa.
Wow. It was really interesting, really. So we are really looking forward to perform your trio Up and Away for Oboe and the Sun and piano in Madrid at AFOES 2024. But could you tell us the background and story of this piece, or were you motivated to do it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm so excited that you're performing it. Thank you both for performing it and for your support. So this was one that I wrote in my master's degree. It was commissioned by Geraldine, actually. So Geraldine Giovanetti, and her colleague, Chris Smith, and their colleague, the late Jed Moss, they were in a trio called the Sundance Trio for oboe, bassoon, and piano. And Geraldine commissioned me to write a new piece for their trio. And I don't remember where what I was thinking of exactly when I was like where the synthesis of the idea. I just remember I wanted it. I feel like I find myself best in music when I can express humanity through music, or the human experience through music. And I also feel like expressing it through a parable, serious or silly, or like an object lesson, is something that speaks to me as well, like a metaphor. And so I found that this idea of a balloon, I don't remember, I think I was laying down in bed one night and I was just thinking about how funny balloons were. I don't know, and how we blow them up and then they deflate and how they can float away. Maybe one of our kids had been holding onto a balloon that floated away, then they accidentally let it go or something. And I was thinking about that, and then I realized that this thing that I wanted to write about could be told through a balloon. It's kind of silly, and probably initially people might think that it is, going to be a silly piece, but life is silly sometimes too. But also I think that that there's another layer of it, that it is about the human experience. It's about triumphs and silly moments and stumbles and loss also, and acceptance, and so I that I think that's kind of where it came from. And Geraldine and her trio, the Sundance Trio, they performed it for the first time at IDRS 2014, and she and I shared a recital, and I played the oboe and percussion piece that I had written in 2009 in that same recital that we shared. So that was really special to be able to share that recital with her in New York, and we went out afterward, and we all grabbed a shake and a burger from Shake Shack, and it was a really special day.
So I have one, extra question about the Up and Away trio, because I wanted to ask you why in the second movement you chose these two melodies. Like, why those melodies? Is there any reason or?
Well, so I was, this is something that I had been kind of thinking about a little bit, and in another piece I wrote to it a little bit more. It was the beginning of me starting to think of and starting to take professional orchestral auditions. And I remember feeling this frustration at the idea of having to fit in this box, that it had to be just this way, just so, like perfect, but perfect in as to however, they thought perfect was. And now I understand it in a different layer, like, well, what's actually being asked in some ways is like, is it like not just like robotic, but like more emotive, like we're looking for something special in the emotion in an audition. But at the time I thought, oh, there are these set excerpts that we're all expected to play, and we're expected to play them this way. And sometimes I feel like I would just like to rebel against all of it, and play them the way that I wanted to play them. Or, or what if they were jazzy? Or what if they were, what if they were just totally bonkers? And so I thought in this movement, and then later in another piece called 2772, there's a movement that's basically all a bunch of oboe excerpts, quotations, but just kind of totally messed up.
Is that the one with the reed? There's one movement just playing the reed. That I love that.
Yeah. So that's a different movement too. That's a movement just after that. Yeah. But anyway, in this one I picked Snake Charmer because I thought I wanted to pick three pieces that pretty much that typified what we think of when we think of what a pianist should be, or what an oboist should be, or what a bassoonist should be. And And so, and I don't know if there are specific pieces necessarily, but, you know, for oboists, I thought, well, snake charmer, everybody thinks of the snake charmer as soon as they think of the oboe, you know, and everybody thinks of for Elise when they hear the piano. And for bassoon, I don't know if they always think of Tchaikovsky 4, but, you know, maybe though, maybe bassoonists definitely think of Tchaikovsky 4, you know, is when they think of bassoon. And so, but I wanted it to be like interpreted in a different way, in a way that was like, well, I'm not going to be this, you know, I'm not going to fit into this box. I'm going to do it the way that I want to do it. So
Well, it's good you didn't think about Sacre and you put Tchaikovsky because otherwise,
Right to spring, you mean? Yeah.
yeah, sorry.
oh yeah, yes, the red spring. Yeah, that wouldn't have been quite a not as fun of an experience, maybe. That's enough to think about just as it is. So
Do you want to ask anything else about the trio, Xaro? Or
No, it was just that because I was too curious to know why.
yeah.
But
I think the
it was
audience. I was just going to say, I think the audience love it when we get to that bit. They're just like, they suddenly wake up. Oh, what's that?
and actually it was the encore. We did it again, and people was really happy about it.
Yeah, that was when because we played it in Seville was it March this year?
February.
February, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was really nice because I was in Sevilla working last year, and colleagues from orchestra were there, and they were writing in a WhatsApp group like, "Oh, this is for Alyssa. Oh, this is," like they were trying to find out which piece was.
great. Thanks, Alyssa. Have you ever been to Spain?
yes, my first time and my only time, but I hope that it will be more because I loved it so much. My first time was in 2018 when the IDRS convention was in Spain. And it was my first international, like going out of country IDRS that I had been to. And I loved everything about the conference. I loved everything about Granada. Was just so beautiful. And I performed the collision etudes there when I came. I had just finished them in 2017, and then 2018 is when it was just after my first year of teaching at Kansas State, and the piece had maybe been a year old or so, and so I proposed to perform that at IDRS 2018, and that was the first time that I met Sarah, who was so nice and helpful to me, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I still felt like
I think we were running around trying to get the computer to work.
Yeah, I brought in the wrong plugs, I'm sure, because I knew that there was going to be a plug component to it that didn't quite match up, but I didn't know how it was all going to work.
Yeah.
So
No, I remember meeting you very well. When I was thinking about asking about have you been to Spain, I'd totally forgotten about the IDRS 2018 conference. And I mean, that was the year we also listened to 4 personalities in the Norma Hooks competition that
yes,
Brian won, isn't it? Yeah.
yes,
I think that's when the first time that young, especially young Spanish oboists heard your music and they thought, wow, this is really good, I want to play this. And yeah, it was the beginning of discovering your music. That's what's so great about these conferences and connecting, isn't it?
I loved it, and I loved just that conference. I remember it feeling really special and magical, and just meeting everybody was so special. Everybody was so nice. It was a wonderful conference.
Right. We'd like to see you in Spain again sometime. That'd be great.
I would like to come to Spain sometime.
So in Spain, this piece that you have mentioned before, for personalities and collision interludes, are for oboe are well known, but do you have anything for bassoon or solo bassoon that you could tell us?
I have a piece that I wrote in 2012 for bassoon and piano, and it's called Mathematics. And it's a 3-movement work. And I think when we had the virtual IDRS, I think it was one of the virtual years that it was on their young artist competition then. And I have since not written anything yet for solo bassoon, but I would like to at some point someday. So like just bassoon alone, I would love to do that sometime. I have several works that are chamber works that include bassoon, a couple of woodwind quintets, and I'm a little bit behind on my publication. I have works that exist that aren't necessarily on the publication website yet, just because I'm still working through that. Sometimes I I guess that's the one tricky thing about, the performance and the composition and trying to do both is just managing all of it. And sometimes I'm going on to the next writing project because that deadline is coming up. And so I don't go back and finish the publication process. So the piece exists. It's just I haven't published it yet. So I'm working, my sabbatical a lot of what I will do will be finishing publishing about 5 years worth of pieces. And like I've maybe got 20 backlogged that I've got to publish. And so there are a couple of woodwind quintets that include bassoon. There's a woodwind sextet that just with woodwind quintet plus piano that includes bassoon, and a piece that's about to be published that's for English horn, bassoon, and piano called Lost and Found. And then another one for English horn, bassoon, and piano, which I had actually received 2 commissions for that particular pairing within like a 2-year period. So it was kind of interesting to be able to write 2 different pieces in that pairing. I really love the pairing. And that one is called Look. And so that will be sometime in the next year or so that will be published. And then a couple of other, like a reed quintet and so bassoon in different chamber music settings, but really only one, so like bassoon and piano piece, and no bassoon concerto yet. So yeah.
And this mathematics is in Trefco, or
Yes. Yeah.
I would love to try at least.
That would be great. I hope you do. I hope you do.
I'm looking forward to your trio for oboe and double bass and piano.
Yes, that one will be coming soon too. Your husband's a double bass player.
Yeah,
Oh,
we're always looking for new. Yeah, so that would be great. We'll definitely play it when it comes out.
That one will be soon too. That's on the list of the next phase of things to work through. And I have a great student who's helping me to kind of move through that too, as I work with like TD and me and this graduate student, and helping me to kind of get some of these things published. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine it's a lot of work preparing it all.
She's been a great assistant so far. So she just started helping me with this maybe in the last couple of months. And within, I don't know, I feel like then I've had more things that have gotten to, ready for publication in the last, 3 weeks than I have in a long time, just because I'm thinking about it and she's helping me with that process. And TD has been so great to work with all of that. So, and patient with me.
So we have one last question is, what are your future plans what are your future plans and projects?
Well, right now I'm writing, so for oboe pedagogically, I feel like there's a lot of new music being written that works well for students in college and maybe professionals too, but not quite as much that is slightly younger that works well for middle school, high school, that sort of age, or like later middle school and high school, maybe like early college. And so I have a friend who has commissioned me a colleague who's commissioned me to write kind of an anthology of short solos for oboe and piano that could be played at some of their middle school and high school contests. And we call them solo and ensemble festivals here in the States, but that would suit students well that were playing grade 3 and maybe 4 band works and possibly even grade 2 band works. So I'm working on a compilation of solos that are going to be a book, I guess, an oboe solos book that will include 12 or 13 new short solos. And so those will be for oboe and piano. I'm working on a new oboe concerto that's for oboe and it'll be like a smaller orchestra than my last one. So string orchestra, percussion, and piano. And then a piano concerto I also have on the docket, and a viola concerto on the docket, and a variety of different chamber ensemble pairings from groups that have commissioned that particular pairing. So I'm really excited. It's a kind of a lot of different types of things over the next year or two for composition, and then for performance I'm in a trio, a flute oboe piano trio, and we have a couple of tours that will go and do some performance tours with the trio, performing some new works. So we'll go at the end of this month, and we'll play a piece of mine called Of Infinity, which originally was a double concerto for 2 oboes and wind band. But there's a pretty heavy piano part. So it might as well be 2 oboes and piano concerto with wind band, you know. And so I revamped it so that it was oboe and flute and piano and concerto with wind band. And we'll be playing it with a group in Utah on this tour that we're going on. And then we'll also give a couple of recitals and master classes in some different places. So we'll do that at the end of September. And then I have Topeka Symphony performances and some other things. And then a recital that I'm giving in December with some colleagues that are coming to Kansas to join me and give this a recital in this art gallery, and then also on campus. And then some more things to look forward to in sabbatical that I'm really excited about too. So some performance opportunities. But yes, I love that it's both. I really love that it's performance and that it's composition, and I enjoy them both so much. So yeah.
Wow, you've got a busy next couple of months, apart from having sabbatical.
The sabbatical will be great though, because I think that then I won't be coordinating it with teaching too. Although I love the teaching also, and I'll miss my students while I'm gone, but it'll be good for them too. One of the person who's teaching for me, who's on while I'm on sabbatical, is actually my PhD student, and so that'll give her some really valuable teaching experience and resume building experience too, and she'll be wonderful. So yeah.
Wow, fantastic. I'm really interested to hear the viola concerto. We've got a couple of colleagues here in Seville. They'll probably be really interested in that one. Yeah.
I'll let you know once it's finished. So yeah.
Well, it's been really lovely to speak to you, Alyssa. Thank you for offering your time, and it's just nice to just hear a little bit more about the background of what you've been doing and about the piece that we're going to play. So thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you both so much for your support, and thank you for asking, and thanks for all you do for the Spanish Double Reed Society and making this amazing event happen, and for letting my piece be part of it. I really appreciate it. Thanks for your support.
They're going to love it, Alyssa.
Thank you.